What's up, YouTube? We are back, episode 11 of Sideline Chatter with Vic. As always, my guy Vic, and you know me. So, pretty fun slate on the agenda today. Let's kick it off with some NBA action. And how about Steph Curry? 12 of 19 from three, 54-point game. Just missed, I don't say just missed, but 2 3 shy of tying the 3-point record for makes in a single game set by his ex-teammate Klay Thompson. So I'm sure there was a little bit of I want to say anger or jealousy, but he definitely probably wanted to maybe steal that away because there's a little bit of bitterness there post trade, even at this point in time. But how are you feeling about the game? I know people were pretty hyped at halftime.
Yeah, it was a really good game. Curry made like a shot from the other side of the free throw line right before the halftime, and just before that, the Warriors were having like a bad game. They were losing bad to the Magic. Paulo Banchero was going crazy. He pulled up for 41 on the night, 41 6 and 5, and it seemed like he couldn't miss. Franz Wagner was on his game. Like it was, having a they're having their way with the Warriors pretty much, and then Steph Curry lit a fire under that team, just kept hitting shot after shot. It seemed the more points they got, the closer they kept catching up. And it might sound simple, but that once you get that momentum, obviously, watching basketball, once that momentum hits, whole team just starts riding with it. And once they started keeping the game close, they didn't look back, and Curry managed to take it out with a couple jump shot mid. He had like a couple mid fadeaways and late in the fourth that really sealed the deal for them. A couple of free throws that the Magic gave them. So all in all, it was one of those like magical nights that Steph had. It happened on Tuesday, which is the same day he had that OKC game winner.
Something about Tuesdays for Steph, man. It's just his day, apparently.
It's something about that day because I get there was another game where he had like another 50-point game years back. I think like 10 years ago, 10, 11 years. So whatever, every time he plays on what was it, February 25th or 27th, he just balls out.
That's his day. The stars align. Yeah, they had a 40-point third quarter. Outscored the Mavs by 19. That was the largest deficit for the game by quarter. The second would have been Orlando in the first, outscoring them by 11. Most of the second quarter was pretty tight. It was only a 3-point difference in Orlando's favor, and then a 1-point difference in the fourth for the Warriors. It really was. It was that third quarter out of the half. I think Steph had 9 threes at the half. So cooled down a little bit there, in the second half, hitting 9 in the first and then only, putting in 3 in the second. Um, but overall, I mean, you can't really complain at a 56-point game. But like I said, Bankero has just been absolutely phenomenal as well. He's definitely one of those young guys that's going to be taking the torch here as some of the guys we grew up watching start to fade themselves out of the league. Guys like LeBron, KD, Steph. So overall, this was, I think, a really exciting game where you have obviously Steph, one of the guys that's still got a couple more years, but is, starting to pass the torch maybe in the next year or so. Just going absolutely off. But you also have the young bull that's going to be taking over. And like you said, Wagner had himself a game as well. Not really from three, but everywhere else seemed to be pretty effective. I really like Orlando. Obviously, being out east with the Knicks, I'm not going to necessarily root for them, but I do really like they have a nice young team. And the Warriors are almost the exact opposite with Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler as their core, a bunch of older vets. So this was just a very interesting game. Um, and Steph was a one-man band. I mean, Jimmy Butler finished with 5 points on the night, 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 3 from the three-point line, but he did have 7 assists. So I think he's fitting in pretty nicely there, where he doesn't have to be the main guy anymore. He just kind of gets to be, a playmaker, really, and use him as they need him offensively, which isn't really that much. Um, but overall, definitely was an exciting game. I don't think it was as exciting as the Knicks Grizzlies game, which was last night. I did catch that. I'm not sure how many of you out there did, but possibly one of the more exciting games of the week so far. Knicks squeak out a 1 point win there at the end. It was just a back and forth game, all game really. So to have it end in a 1 point victory was very fitting. Um, last 30 to 40 seconds was really entertaining. JB hits a go ahead three. Ja Morant comes back down and gets another go ahead basket to have OG Anunoby hit another go ahead three with 4 seconds left. And it ended on Ja Morant drive and miss. But the big story there, especially being a Knicks fan, was the return of Mitchell Robinson. He only played 12 minutes, but he did have the best plus minus for the entire team at plus 11. Finished with 6 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist. But his first game back since he was injured in the playoffs last season against Joel Embiid, and it was just it was great to finally see him back out there. Not only is it somebody I think the Knicks really needed back, especially defensively, but also on the boards as well, even though we still got out rebounded. But again, he only played 12 minutes. So obviously they're gonna slowly work him back in. But it's really as he's if you don't watch the Knicks, he really is a big piece. He's not necessarily gonna put up 30 points, nowhere near, but he kind of is the motor, defensive anchor, rebounder. He's one of the best offensive rebounders in the league, period. So, an area that the Knicks already struggle in, he's just going to be a big boost back. He's pretty much everything the Knicks need right now, with the exception of perimeter defense, particularly guarding the 3 point line. In fact, I believe the Knicks are the worst in the league at defending the three. But overall, very promising, very exciting to see Mitch back out on the court. He's a very hard worker, so it's definitely, I know he was feeling good to be back out there. Vic, you
Where
have
does
any
he fit?
thoughts?
Where does he fit in the current lineup? Because obviously your
He,
starting five is OG, Josh, Cat, Jalen, and Foul. But
yeah, he'll come off the bench for Cat. However, he closed the game out last night. Partially probably due to Cat being in foul trouble. We had 5 fouls on the night, but it's no secret that Karl-Anthony Towns isn't a very good defender. And neither is Jalen Brunson. They're not like the worst in the league, but it's hard to have, a guard out there that's not the best defender. And then also you don't have anyone to shut down the paint, so that it's just a bad combination for the Knicks. So if games are tight down the stretch, Mitchell Robinson will most likely be on the court. So that's kind of, I don't know if I really wouldn't say he's a sixth man, because as of right now, that is Miles McBride, Deuce, but he's right there. It's going to probably be neck and neck, and as he works himself back in, he'll definitely get 18, 22 minutes a game, give or take, somewhere in there. Coming in for Cat, especially since we know Cat, gets injured every now and then. So definitely gonna be nice to have him back.
yeah, Cat right now, he's still on the MVP watch, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he is absolutely having, I don't know about the best season of his entire career, but it's up there. He's right in the middle of his prime. He is due quite a hefty amount of money, but it's Jalen Brunson's team. But right now, Karl Anthony Towns is really just that dude. He's been that dude. He had a stinker last night, but that's gonna happen in the course of an 82 game season. Um, It was nice seeing the Knicks get a dub against a top team. Maybe not one of the best three teams in the league. Still 0-7 there, unfortunately. But the Grizzlies are a top three team out west. So they are a very good, potent team. They're not just going to be a pushover. They're not going to be, I don't think they're going to be one and done in the playoffs type of team. But the thing with the Knicks is that they're clearly one of the best five teams in the league. If they're not fourth, they're fifth. It's just, you know, being 0-7 versus the top 3 teams in OKC, Boston, and Cleveland, that's if you want to be a contender, you're going to have to go through one of those 2 teams at the minimum, being out in the East, right? You're either going to have to beat the Cavs or the Celtics. And then if you were to happen to get to the finals, if OKC makes it, then you got to get through OKC. But I mean, I don't know if the Knicks are ready to contend yet. I mean, their core isn't old. They're not young, but they're not just like one and done. It's not like Joel Embiid and Paul George out in Philly, which probably a good segue there.
I did want to point out to you though, before we switched over, the stats from the Grizzlies and the Knicks were kind of shocking because the Grizzlies only made four 3-pointers out of 31 total,
That was insane.
but they had 21 out of 22 free throws and 58 total
12.9% from the
rebounds,
3-point line. 12.9%. But as you just said, 95% from the free throw line.
which means like you guys only had 16, so it's definitely a little bit more fouling, but they really did control. Did it seem like to you at all when you watched the game they had more control of the game than the Knicks? Because obviously you see the 58 total rebounds, especially with the offensive rebounds, 19 of them, and the 74 points inside the paint. But they also had 18 turnovers. You guys had 10 steals, 7 blocks.
I wouldn't say there was any point in time where they had more control or it felt that way. It felt like it was going to go down to the buzzer, and it did. It was a very back and forth game. Um, the Grizzlies had the lead first quarter. Knicks closed the gap in the second quarter. Grizzlies took the third quarter, and then the Knicks took the fourth quarter. So it was very back and forth the entire game.
That's because obviously stats say one thing and watching it says another. But it's kind of hard to not think that the Grizzlies kind of have something going right now, also because John Morant's having a pretty great season. I think Zach Edey is one of the most slept on players of this year,
I would
most
agree there.
definitely.
I would.
He put up 10. He put up a double double. He had 10 points, 11 rebounds, and I thought when the Grizzlies drafted him, he was a perfect fit because there's
He
no other
is
team that maybe other than the Hornets, there's no other team that he could have went to and had this type of production.
immediately, yeah.
So I do think that they are still a scary team to watch out for. Obviously, Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year, top candidate. I think he's going to pretty much walk away with it now that Wimby's out for the year.
So yeah,
And
go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, and it just seems like even though like this is like a 1 point loss, they're still dominating the games. Like they just beat the Suns 151 to 148. They lost to the Cavs, but 123, 129. How often are the Cavs scoring 129 points? Not that often.
So you're 100% right. This very easily could have been another bad, low key embarrassing loss for New York. The Knicks' biggest issues, which I talked about it a touch already, but it's the rebounding, which we saw here tonight, and defending the 3-point line. The Grizzlies shooting 4 of 31 from the 3-point line is, sure, they're not the best 3-point shooting team in the league, but that was very, very well below just the average for anything for them, for the league, anything. So it's one of the, I mean, they lose by one. All they had to do is make one more three, realistically. So the Knicks, again, their biggest issues were on display. They got out rebounded and they gave up too many threes. They were just very fortunate that the Grizzlies could not make a three to save their life because that very easily could have been a double digit win for the Grizzlies if they, knocked down a handful of those. So you're definitely 100% right there. And like I said, it feels good to get a dub against a team of this caliber. I just do wish it was more backed on the Knicks playing really good defense, which is the issue. They're not.
Of course, but the Grizzlies are also one of the top scoring teams. They're also the worst defensively, but they're one of the worst defensively. But when you're putting up 125, 130 a game, it's almost like you don't even defense at that point.
They just play fast, man. They got young legs and they're gonna utilize it. I really like Memphis out west. I think there's potentially a sleeper team for sure. which is crazy because they're the third seed. But you think of West, people are thinking OKC, of course, Denver. I don't know how many people are like, yeah, the Grizzlies, they can make it. I actually do think they could.
They're definitely one of the scarier teams out there. Let's go back to the Joel Embiid news.
So yeah, like I said, the Knicks older but not younger. They're not Joel Embiid and Paul George, who are both well into their 30s, and now Clippers already or Clippers 76ers already having a pretty bad season. And yeah, Joel Embiid is officially done for the year. They're not really classifying exactly what it is. They're just saying left knee issues. He's gonna have surgery, I guess, which is weird because they don't know what it is. So what are they? What surgery is happening? Um, but yeah, walk us through this. What's going on here?
So Joel Embiid has been having left knee issues ever since he's been in the league. Had his left meniscus, I think it was, repaired twice now. He got injured in 2020 with that same knee injury, and something is lingering his obviously his knee to the point where it's like he can't play. And obviously and during the Olympics, he wasn't running as hard, he wasn't playing as hard as he could.
Yeah,
And I think that's like a secret injury that was holding him back that he didn't want to just have like out in the public. But everyone knew what was wrong. But obviously, the Olympics and then the time in between from then to the NBA season, it's a little bit of time to recover, heal. It was like a couple months.
yeah.
But you would hope like a superstar would have some type of comeback for that. And he just got a 3-year, $193 million extension.
He has gotten paid, that's for
So
sure.
so this kind of is hurting his paychecks. If he's not medically cleared next year, the 76ers might try to get a medical retirement
That's
filed for
crazy. Which means they won't have
because
to pay him.
exactly. And from what I saw, somebody said uh, from Legion Hoops when they could petition for if he's unable to play a year from now, an independent doctor selected by the NBA and the NBPA would examine Embiid. If agreed he can no longer play, his remaining contract would be null and void.
Yeah, it's
So
actually
like
insane. I didn't even know that was a thing, actually.
yeah, so pretty much like the whole like his pretty much his entire contract just won't have can just be white from the books, and it won't be against their cap space, which would be huge for them because if Joel can't play, especially next year, so you might still have Paul George, but you can finally build the team around Tyrese Maxey. Something
That
I've
would
been
be big.
saying for years now because Tyrese Maxey is the guy to go to. I've been saying it since James Harden was on the 76ers. Because Harden,
That feels like a
in my
lifetime
opinion,
ago.
yeah, in my opinion, I've always thought Harden was kind of overrated in this latter half of his career. Obviously, when he was in OKC, it's as it's starting out, he was great with the Rockets, but I feel like he hasn't been that same guy. Like he'll have flashes, be like, "Oh, vintage Harden is doing this," but I've always thought the moment Maxey was on that team, that was going to be his team,
Yeah, I
and the
agree.
76ers need to cash in on this kid, like on this kid for real, because he's shown time and time again that he can be the star. He got snubbed of an All Star appearance this year because the Sixers weren't playing that good, but he was playing. I think he was playing better than Lamelo at some point.
He was cooking up in the playoffs against the Knicks.
So it's kind of hard to feel bad for Joel if he knows that he's been injured and you have all this money. And at some point, you got to understand that you got to take care of your body. That's something that's been preached about for years, especially nowadays, more so nowadays because everyone wants to get paid. It's like we all need to take care of take care of our body. We're all get paid. The cat space goes up, we get paid even more each and every year. And you see, like we said before, you see guys like LeBron, you see football stars, you see Jamar Chase took out a. We talked about this last time on the podcast. Jamar Chase taking out that insurance policy in case he gets hurt, then he's
Yeah,
covered.
which is genius.
And And, you know, it's almost like when you see Joel on the court, he just has like, this childlike mindset. Like he just doesn't like,
Oh yeah, I
he's
know
not
exactly
like
what you mean.
as mature as like he should be. And now it's kind of biting him back in the butt because now you're potentially going to lose that $200 million extension. You're going to lose
Oh yeah,
your contract, and you might not be able to start in the NBA again
he
because
is.
teams are going
He's
to look at that and be like, well, he's pretty injury prone. Yeah,
and
Are we
immature.
going to invest? Are we going to invest in that? Do we really want to spend the extra money? Because we're not going to give because he's not going to get a base contract. They're going to pay more for him just because of his status. MVP. Um, he's been to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? Or no?
I don't think they've made it out of the second round.
So pretty much just like playoff experience and all these
Individual
accolades.
talent.
All these accolades, yeah, sure, but from a team dynamic, it's like, do you really want to have a guy like that on your team? Like, I mean, as a Hornets fan, do I want Lamelo on my team? I sometimes I don't
I
because
know.
he's just
Yeah,
so hurt. He's so hurt all the time. He's talented. I think he is talented. He's always hurt. Mark Williams, he's only played 40% of his career games. Do I like him? Sure. Is he talented? Yeah. Can he stay healthy? I don't know. 40% is pretty bad. And Joel's missed about 3 to 4 seasons worth of NBA just off of injuries and the time management or load management. So it's almost like the medical retirement is the best case scenario for the 76ers.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he's listed at 7 foot 280. So we've talked about it before with the 7 footers, especially with someone like Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's not fat; he's just a big guy. Um, that's just a lot of mass on the legs to be doing what he does. We see it a lot with bigs of his height. Kristaps Porzingis out in Boston isn't anywhere near as thick, mass wise as Joel Embiid, and he deals with kind of the same things. He's just kind of always injured. Mitchell Robinson, a 7 footer, he's always injured, and he's only 24 or 5. I love him, but you know, it's a big risk with the 7 foot plus guys, and that's kind of also how I feel about OG Anunoby, who he's not a 7 footer, but he's just a guy. It's like once somebody shows you that they're going to get hurt consistently, they get that injury prone label. How many guys ever shed that label? So, yeah, he's definitely medical retirement, best case scenario for the 76ers. For Joel Embiid, I don't want to say there isn't a best case scenario, but there almost isn't a best case scenario. I mean, any team is going to be leery, like you said, of paying him big money, especially starting him. He's only 31 years old, I think. So he can still should have 3, 4 good years left, before he really would start being a bench guy. But like I said, with the injuries, it's just so risky to have him playing starting minutes. He would like you said, he was already doing a lot of load management, wasn't playing back to backs. And to have that at 30 years old, 31 years old, what's he going to look like when he's 34, 35, 36? So,
Yeah. So what I am seeing with the medical retirement is this is from Keith Smith NBA. I'm not sure if you're aware.
I'm not.
Uh, he says someone asked about if they're forced into medical retirement, are they able to resign somewhere else later if they do recover? And does the player still receive the money but not counted against the cap, or is all completely? So if he's able to come, not being if he does end up in medical retirement but can't come back, he can come back to the team. The salary is reinstated, assuming there are
Wow.
years left on the contract. Player still gets paid. The contract just comes off the cap sheet. But I don't know how that would work with extensions.
I would assume it plays the same, but it was a 3-year extension, so he would have a year left if he misses a year.
He have 3 year, $193 extension
With this being the first year of the extension?
next year.
Oh, so then he would still have 2 years on the deal. So he'll probably finish his career out in Philadelphia then. I don't even think we'll get to the medical retirement, to be honest with you.
You don't think so?
I don't. I mean, he was playing, you know. So I think it would come down to, does he want to play? And if he
So
does, I don't see why he would be out for over a year. That's kind of crazy. That's, you see that when
so
somebody like breaks something.
this year alone, he's making 51 mil, pretty much almost $52 million this year, right? Then I think this upcoming year would be his last of his contract with making 55 a year. Then the 3-year extension, which would be from 2026 to 2029, 59 mil, 64 mil, 69 mil.
Kind of similar to the Karl Anthony Towns extension. Um, yeah,
So,
one, I don't think we're ever gonna hit that medical retirement. To be honest with you, that's a lot of money, and he's gonna want it. So it would have, like I said, he would have to not want to play anymore, or at least take that year off plus, because the Sixers might push for it, but he's gonna want that money. So he's gonna, in my mind, he's gonna do what he needs to do to get back on the court, or at least get cleared to play so he can get paid.
right. Because he
So
is on his max contract right now. And next year would be, and obviously next year would be his last year on that max. So the 3-year, 193 mil extension would start in the 2026 season,
yeah,
or
so
2026, 2027.
yeah, next year. Like I said, he has to be out for over a year essentially. A year from now plus the time he's already missed. I don't. I guess we'll figure out more. We'll have a better idea of that, the likelihood of that happening when we actually find out what the exact injury is. The official statement from the team, from the Philadelphia 76ers. The Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid have been consulting with top specialists regarding ongoing issues with his left knee. After further evaluation, it has been determined that he is medically unable to play and will miss the remainder of the season to focus on treatment and rehabilitation. We are working with medical experts to determine the exact treatment plan and will update media when we have more information. The team and specialists will continue working with Joel to ensure the best path forward for his long-term health and performance. So that last sentence is kind of what I just said. It's going to come down to, in my opinion, does he actually want to play still? Um,
He's been in
and
the league for what, 14 years now?
he came in pretty young. Um, I don't. I mean, no one can tell you what Joel Embiid's thinking other than Joel Embiid. Um, 9 seasons, but that is a lot of money to willingly give up. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't see that happening. I don't. And
But you gotta think though, if he's not playing, then it's not against the Sixers cap history.
yeah, it's not. But so I
I
mean,
mean, he
he
still
did
has to
say he
get
still gets
paid,
paid. So I mean, yeah, if he's still making his
but
money, and it's not on their
I don't think.
books, maybe.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I don't feel bad for the 76ers, because here, we'll just rattle off real quick. And now we all know that there's 82 games in a season. So from his rookie year 2016 to this season, games played: 31, 63, 64, 51, 51, 68, 66, 39, 19.
not a lot.
That is insane. So the fact that, he's getting into his 30s, and at age 29 he only played 39 games. Respectfully, why the hell would you give him a massive 3-year extension that would pay him until he's 34,
Trust the
35?
process.
So I personally don't feel bad, and I hope that they don't get the medical retirement. But seeing as how he would still get paid, do I think Joel Embiid would willingly not play and still make 50 some $1,000,000? I think he would do that. Yeah, I do. At that point, yeah. Absolutely. Um, and he is an absolute, not to segue yet, but we talk about some of these drivers being menaces on the track. Joel Embiid's a menace on the basketball court,
Yeah.
man. He's out there just sometimes he's playing rugby, I swear to God. I mean, we just talked about he's the one that injured Mitchell Robinson, who just this was in the playoffs last year. Mitchell Robinson just made his season debut last night. It is well, it's March 1st now, but it was the last day of February. So I'm not too I like Joel Embiid. I like the talent, but he's just too reckless out there, man. I'm not gonna miss him on the court. I'm
So
not happy that he's injured at all, but that guy's a menace.
one of his most recent games before he was out and actually for the year, it was like one of the first few games he was back. I think it was right after All Star break. You see him, he's flopping around, he's missing shots, he's trying to draw the foul, he's falling on the floor a lot, and it's like,
That's his forte.
buddy, buddy, it's like, buddy, you're not going to get the calls like you think you are, but you're also not playing 100%. Like, and also if you're going to keep falling, got to keep picking yourself back up. That's not going to be good for your knee.
No.
I don't know what your plan is. I don't know if you think that, throwing your body on a whim is going to help you get more points, get the fouls. But I mean,
When
I
it's
don't know how.
shooting, there's a good there's a better chance of it happening. But when you're down low in the paint, they tell guy like Julius Randle said he was told, the same thing, and we see it with Carl Anthony Towns. When it comes to the guys that are big and physical and strong, they absolutely let defenders essentially foul them. And they tell them, you're too strong, bro. Like we got to let them do something. So when he's down there on the block flopping around like a fish, bro, you're not going to get that call. When you're out there shooting jumpers, yeah, you have a better chance. But like you said, he's just exerting energy and potentially hurting his knees even more. I mean, bless you. It's like we saw it with Derrick Rose. Why did Derrick Rose knee go to hell? It's because, you look at a lot of his highlights and the way he was landing after those dunks, all that explosion, bad landing, bad for the knees. It's like the big man version of it, constantly flopping around on the ground, falling down, then having to get up. That's you're working against yourself at that point.
Yeah, that Derrick Rose story is always hurts the soul to hear.
I know.
But
Tragic.
when it's Joel Embiid, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Another game I wanted to get to before we segue to NASCAR.
Oh
Lakers and
yes.
Mavs.
Yes, yes.
Luka Doncic's return game. Well, not really return because it was a Lakers home game, but first game against his own team. And oh boy, if my name was Nico Collins, I would be very I'd be very watchful for the pitchforks.
Did you see the picture of him staring him down?
Yep. And I saw pregame. Luca was hitting push-ups in front of Nico Collins. Mark Cuban was there in attendance. He's just sitting there laughing in disbelief because he would. If Mark Cuban was the sole owner of the Mavericks,
That
still he
trade
would
doesn't
never.
happen, no.
He never gets rid of him. If Danny Ainge pays a little more attention to who the trade is going towards, that trade doesn't happen.
Did you see the old
But
pictures of Dirk
yeah, that boy was going crazy.
getting fried,
It's crazy. I do remember those pictures from whenever I was in high
I
school.
didn't remember them.
But it's like it's been so long that since I've seen him that when those hit, it was like a core memory. I was like, "Oh yeah, Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki was a menace
Party
off
animal.
in the off season." But it's crazy because we all make the nicknames. Hookah Doncic. And you see him like smoking whatever, just like pretty much tobacco. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
out of
the
the
who out
hookah.
the hookah, yeah.
Yeah, and then you got the beer drinking. You saw him like the after they won the Eastern Conference Finals. He had a beer.
I was like, that
They
video
hit,
makes a lot more sense now.
and he's like, "What the heck? They just took my beer." And
Yeah.
it's like that's at some point you got to realize like he is young. He's not. It's not like he has like a Zion overweight problem. He's a little chubby. He's just a little chubby guy. There's nothing wrong with being a little chubby guy who hoops. Nikola Jokic, he might be 7 foot, but he's a chubby guy. But he can shoot. He can play.
I mean, he
You
led them to
know,
a finals.
and I think he did. He led him to a finals with
Nobody.
with like
Not
except for like what
nobody, but
Kyrie and then what a PJ Washington that sometimes shows up. So like you have to realize that like that's your face of the franchise. That is the Dallas Mavericks. Like some people are just transcend beyond like where they're at. I think Jokic is the Denver Nuggets. Shy in my opinion is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like Steph Curry is to the Warriors. They're just transcendent players who've stuck with this team for so long since they've been drafted. And this is what the fans go for. This is why you make your money. This is why you guys win games. This is why you get the players because you have that transcendent player. But you get rid of your Luka Doncic. What do you think is going to happen next? You're going to lose games, just like they lost to the Lakers. Obviously, Kyrie had a baller game. He balled for 35, 7 and 4.
I love Kyrie. I will
PJ
say though,
Washington had the
if
absolute thinker.
he did 0 of
Absolute,
9
like
from the field, he was out there getting cardio, 35 minutes and no points. I mean, he
he had
had
10
4
rebounds. I'll give
blocks,
him
10
credit.
boards, 5 assists.
I've never known that man on the Hornets. I've never known that man to get my entire life. So seeing him get 10 rebounds is pretty much him having like a 30-point game.
No, no bullshit. I will say though, if Anthony Davis plays in that game, I do wonder if the Lakers win. Because Doncic didn't, he really didn't have that great of a game. I mean, he had 19 points, 15 boards, and 12 assists, so crazy triple double, but he shot 6 of 17, 1 of 7 from the field, from the 3-point line. 6 of his points came from the free throw line. So, I don't want to say you take those away, but you take those away, he's put up 13 points, from the field. So, like,
Still got
realistically, he didn't have that great of a game. Um,
still had 12 assists and 15 rebounds.
that's what I say, yeah. That is
Just
crazy.
so that is like peak Luka Doncic right there. He might not, but and the best part about him not being able to have to score, he's got LeBron James, he's got Austin Reeves.
Brown had a good
Uh,
game. 27,
Aus-
12, and 3.
Austin Reeves 23 and 5.
Reeves has
Uri had
been
a
cooking
15-point
lately.
game.
Yeah, Hachimura's
He,
been having some actually really good games for the Lakers recently.
But obviously, like he might have shot bad, but the Lakers knew what it was. They were gonna let Luca, get his revenge back on him. That's
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much what the people came to see, also. And Lakers are like the Showtime. They're the Showtime team.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes more sense for you to give the ball to Luca, let him take all the shots, even if he's missing. Who cares? I mean, it's Luka Doncic. But literally, the 2 games after that, he pulls up 21, 13, and 5 with when LeBron had a 30-point game against the Timberwolves. And then they asked,
He
and
put up
LeBron played
31
for the
last
rest of the
night.
game. Yep, against the Clippers. If I can pull up the stats real quick.
His 3-point shooting has been pretty atrocious, not gonna lie. What is he looking like on the season? He is 33%. Honestly thought it was gonna be worse than that. It's actually not that bad. I guess he's just not quite found his rhythm in LA yet. Um
I definitely think he's a lot more comfortable now than when we had last talked because he's definitely feeling a little bit more like him how he used to play. It's just that now he has a buffer for whenever he does like miss shots or isn't as accurate shooting the ball. Because when now it's the same thing with Jimmy Butler almost, but obviously Jimmy Butler and Luka Doncic, not on the same
nah.
level.
At least not anymore at least.
But Jimmy Butler is still like a scary person to have, especially with Steph Curry. You know, Butler inside the paint to the mid range, he can still control the floor
Yeah, good
like a point
playmaker.
guard
Mhm.
almost. So he can get that separation for Steph to shoot or Kuminga or anyone else.
Now, the interesting thing about the Clippers game last night, the entire starting five for the Lakers were negative, Whereas on the flip side, the starting five for the Clippers were all positive, except for James Harden had a -1 plus minus. It was a bench game. The bench was the difference. Not the difference because nobody on either bench scored more than 8 points, but the entire Lakers bench plus minus on the positive side, the entire Clippers bench negative on that side, and the Lakers win by 4.
So
So
I'm not sure
actually
how
an
the
interesting game
plus
indeed.
minus stuff works because
It's overrated, but
Paolo's 41-point
it's
game. They
interesting.
put him at -12.
So it's all the plus minuses is how many points were scored while you were on the court. So if you played for 20 minutes and in those 20 minutes your team scored 20 more points than the other team, you're plus 20. So that's all that is. So that's why it's like kind of overrated because a guy that's playing guard, if you're playing against Anthony Davis and Anthony Davis is going off, you could be -13 because you're starting with AD, but you're not guarding AD. You could be shutting your guy down and he could be doing all the damage, but you still have a negative plus minus. That's all that is. But as a whole, it's a decent indicator that when the starters were on the court, Clippers were outscoring the Lakers. And when the bench guys started rotating in and out, it kind of flip flopped. But again, it is overrated.
I
I
do
mean,
I do think that PJ Washington had like a -30.
that is actually atrocious. So, like, but what I mean by it's overrated is the best plus minus in the game for the Clippers Lakers game was Jared Vanderbilt. He was plus 20. He played 15 minutes and had 3 points. So, like I said, it is a little overrated, but it is interesting to look at to have the entire starting five plus minus, opposites, and then the bench being the opposite, and the Lakers win by 4. Um, but
Oh, I take that back. Yeah, PJ Washington had a -4, but Klay Thompson had a -20. He scored 22 points.
yeah, so
So
like you score 22 points, but you're still giving up more points than you're scoring. That's kind of like how that functions. Um, but I'm still not 100% sure. When it first happened, I thought the Lakers, without a doubt, won that trade. They definitely still did because Doncic is what 25, so he still has 10 more years, maybe even more. Whereas Anthony Davis already what 32 or 33. In the long run, yeah, Lakers are going to win that in my opinion, unless they lose Doncic for any reason. But right now, if AD was playing, I think the Mavs would be the better team. I think if they played each other in a 7-game series, I think that's Mavs in 6, maybe even 5. At least with how the Lakers are playing right now, because they're not playing poorly by any means. They're 37-21, but they're not exactly knocking, they're not knocking the socks off of anyone either. I mean, they're about to play the Clippers again here tomorrow. I mean, just looking at their last couple of games, 106 to 102, 111 to 102, 107 to 99, 123 to 100 over the Nuggets was a good one, and then 110 to 102 over the Blazers. They're on a 5-game winning streak, potentially 6 if they can knock the Clippers off again. So, I mean, they did put up 132 against Utah, 124 against Indy, and 120 against Golden State. So, I don't know. They've been
I
on a
think
nice little
they're
streak here.
I do think they're on more of their team dynamic now because they have won like the last 5 of 6, like you just said, and they are definitely more used to how the floor is moving rather than just being like, oh, let's just go LeBron and hope Austin Reeves is out there and can hit a three and then just kind of hope for the best. 'Cause obviously, they don't have like a true center.
Yeah. I mean, they're
No,
16
Jackson.
and 4 in their last 20. So that's actually impressive.
Yeah, so it's not like I think this second half of the season they're gonna pull through with a maybe like a top 6 or 5 seed. They're closing in on the third seed right now. That's I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they are. They're half a game behind Memphis,
So they are definitely
but they're only half a
very.
game ahead of Houston. So
But yeah,
very
that
tight.
the whole West is still tight. It's still very tight, but I do think the Lakers can pull away with it though
I
over the
mean,
rest of them.
like you said, it is very tight. Denver is only 9.5 to the Lakers. You know, they're only a game ahead of the Lakers. Denver's half a game as the second seed. They're half a game ahead of Memphis. The Memphis is the third seed, half a game in front of the Lakers. The Lakers at fourth are half a game in front of Houston. And the Clippers are sixth seed. They're 5 games behind the fifth seed Rockets. So that's, that sixth seed is where they kind of fall off. But yeah, everyone between 2 and 5 is all within half a game of the guy below them. So they could easily end up with the second seed. And, I'm definitely taking them as of right now. That would put them up against what? Golden State? That's actually a very interesting matchup. But Golden State's also only half a game in front of Dallas, who are half a game in front of Minnesota, who are half a game in front of Sacramento. The West is hilarious right now. I'll tell you what. So that a lot. These standings are going to obviously continue to flip flop down the stretch here. But I'm certainly taking the Lakers over Golden State, Minnesota, and Sacramento. It'd be interesting to see them against the Mavericks, funny enough, with AD. But yeah, the West is very, very intriguing. Like, very, very intriguing.
Yeah, outside of the Thunder, who are taking the whole conference away from them.
Yeah, 9.5 games ahead of Denver. I mean, kind of the
That's
same
been
thing with
crazy.
Cleveland out in the East, but Cleveland's still 7.5 games over. It's still a 2 game difference is big in the NBA.
They just beat the Celtics last night too, after being down 3 to 25 in the first quarter.
Yeah, the Cavs, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that. It was funny. They were what Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown were talking some trash there in the first quarter. OKC
I
also
think
has the
Tatum had 30 and a
best.
half.
I mean, they both cooked. Don't get me wrong, but they were talking mad trash when they were up. What was it, 25-3?
25-3. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but like you just said with OKC, they have without a doubt the best differential in the NBA by an entire point, 12.7. Number two is Cleveland at 11.6. No one else is in double digits. So those two teams, without a doubt, have been dominant this season. I mean, the Celtics too at plus 8.6, the Knicks at plus 4.8, Denver plus 5.3, Memphis plus 6.6, and that's kind of it for the top dogs. Everyone else is like a little over one or they're negative. So those are your top dogs this year so far. But OKC has just been on another planet this year. They have.
Hopefully they can figure. Hopefully either them or the Cavs can figure it out this year and finally go to a finals and win one.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a whole different ball game when the playoffs hit. NBA playoffs are arguably one of my favorite times of the year. So I'm not completely down on the Knicks being 0-7 against the top three teams. And I'm not.
I'm excited, definitely.
Oh, like I said, I love NBA playoffs. It's just a different beast. I mean, we're hitting that stretch of the season where you know we're getting into the last 20 games. So within the next like 12 games or so, it's really going to pick up. I feel like NBA teams in general kind of coast for a good 60%, at least the top teams. Like the top dogs know who they are. And like out in the East, there's a lot more wiggle room. Cavs, 7.5 games in front of the Celtics. The Celtics are 2.5 games up on the Knicks, but the Knicks are up 5.5 games on the fourth place Milwaukee Bucks. Everything's tight there. Milwaukee and Indiana tied. Detroit at the 6th seed is only a game behind those two. And then Miami as a 7th seed are 4 games behind the Pistons. So if you're a top team in the East, you have a lot more breathing room. So I feel like the East teams are probably top three are in coast mode almost. But out west, it's going to be an absolute just madhouse here for the last 20 some games. But with, like I said, out east, you might have to wait another dozen games or so before things really start to ramp up. But that's the last 20 typically games is when NBA teams really start to pick up the pace. They're officially fighting to lock in their seed, and they're also preparing for the intensity and the level of play for the playoffs. So yeah, this is when the NBA season really gets good.
definitely. Well, other than basketball, you ever watched your second NASCAR race ever? Again, another super, an intermediate track turn super speedway, Atlanta.
That was an incredible race, man. Well, for starters, I didn't know how much fun I was gonna have with NASCAR. It was one of those things to where you're just a big NASCAR guy and you're my guy. You know, where we've been friends for what 12, 14 years, something like that. So I was really pumped to give it a shot. You know, to have that share that with you. But I have just been incredibly surprised at how much I've enjoyed the first 2 races of the season, even with the first race being delay, finally
And
into
I
the
know,
track,
and
delay.
we've known each other for years. Like, if you didn't like it, you would say, like, this is
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I wouldn't be like, as thrilled to watch it.
Now, you know me, I'll
Like
be like,
very,
"This is
very
terrible."
blunt. Be like,
Yeah.
yeah, be like it's just racing. It's just turning left. It's boring or whatever. But then now you've finally seen a couple races where there's actually drama. There's
Oh, yeah.
actually how tight the racing is, how one little mistake can mess up the entire field. Different strategies. Like it's a carnival
It
almost.
is. It's a lot more than I thought it would be. I still have to give it this coming weekend, which, we talked about a pre-show. We unfortunately are not gonna be live this Sunday, but this is the last type of race I haven't seen. So since I haven't seen a road track yet, but I can say for the 2 that I have, the super speedway and, what is the actual official name for what Atlanta's track?
Atlanta Motor Speedway, but
Like the type of race though?
it's a super speedway. So you
Oh,
still
it is?
got
Okay.
after this week, you got 2 more to watch.
Okay.
You got an intermediate track and a short track.
Okay. Okay. So there's 5 different types. Well, 4 different types.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot more drafting in Atlanta and just a lot of really, really I mean, it's I feel blessed in a way because the first race was, I feel like, a pretty standard super speedway race, especially with it being in Florida, the rain delay. But for my second race to they almost broke the record for most lead changes. They were very close. I think it was 34 and the record's 36, I think. Was that it?
No, it's like in the 50s, 60s, and
Okay, well,
they were definitely in the
um little off there. But yeah, I know I remember hearing the broadcast talk about it a lot.
yeah.
So it was so exciting, man. There was just a lot of really good driving. Being a Washington fan in the NFL, I decided to kind of attach myself to JGR, Joe Gibbs Racing. So to have Chris Bell come in there, and I think Chris Bell has the best paint scheme, being in the carpentry business, and I do use quite a few DeWalt tools myself. Um, DeWalt and Milwaukee are our tool sets. And I really do. I love the DeWalt car. I think it's a really good paint scheme, and I do really like Chris Bell. So to have him win, uh, that was just great. Obviously debatable if he would have won. I don't really understand. And from what I gather from you and Twitter, this is a very bad problem with the inconsistency in NASCAR. I have no idea why they threw the caution flag on that last lap. The wreck was on the back end. It was the final lap, so they didn't have to come back around. It did not affect the front 20 some cars. I don't know why they threw the caution, but Bell wins it.
So, with the Xfinity race the day before, the same
I
exact thing
I read
happened,
this. Yep.
and they didn't throw the caution. They let the leaders race back to the line. I mean, at that point, that was kind of already it's who already won by that point, which was Austin Hill. So, in the drivers' meeting that same morning, afternoonish, right before the race, they told the drivers, if this scenario happens, we're gonna throw the caution. Race is over. And lo and behold, same
It
scenario
has.
happens,
What are the
except
odds, man?
we were cheated out of another 3 wide photo finish.
That would have been
It was
sick.
gonna be Larson, Hocevar, and Bell to the line.
I honestly think it was Hosevar that was going to pull that out too.
He might have, but Bell was so with that track with Atlanta on that high side. There's a little bit of a downhill. You can't see it from like the naked eye, but on the track there's like a tiny bit of downhill. that can make that obviously helps go a little bit
Yeah,
faster.
which is
But
big in racing.
I just knew Larson wasn't gonna win it. Carson Hocevar, he tagged Bell coming into 3,
He
forced
gave him the
himself in the
bump, yeah.
middle, was gonna and looked like he was gonna have the run to take that lead all the way to the finish line. But, you know, I saw Denny Hamlin's podcast, Actions Detrimental, and he said NASCAR made the right call because what they said, which is and
To
obviously
be
for
fair,
safety
they're teammates.
and obviously for safety reasons, it is a safety thing because when a car crashes down, goes right back up the track, that and to oncoming traffic who's going at 170, 180 to the line,
Yeah, it's
that is a
crazy.
problem. You don't want anyone getting hurt. And you can argue it's you can argue both sides. As a fan, if you're gonna do that, then start that next week, in my opinion. Not the same time that you're got the same races going. Just be like, hey, I appreciate the warning they give because it's not like it was just out of the blue. They did
Yeah.
say that they were going to do it,
Less than
but
24 hours after the same scenario, though, is not gonna be a good look.
and this is your big time show. This is what the people come to watch. They don't want to see a race. No one wants to see a race end in a caution
We had a
because
lot of cautions down the stretch.
it ruins a perfectly good race that we just saw. Like you said, we had a lot of cautions. Like every position matters at that point. You want to put yourself in a spot to win. Ryan Blaney, he got wrecked out with like what, like 30, 20 to go. He As soon as he changed his tires, he hauled his ass and was top 5.
That was actually crazy, yeah. You even said it, you were like, "Yo, he can get back in this," and I was like I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, "Look, he's the expert, so I'm not gonna say no," but, like, man, that's a lot of ground to
Pretty
make
far
up.
back. But
But
he's got
yeah.
the I told you, those fresh tires and how fast those Fords were all weekend.
Oh, yeah.
There was no way. Like
Which was
I
crazy
thought
because he's the only Ford that finished in the top 10.
yeah, and
Because
the
of all
Ford
the wrecks, though.
yeah, and the crazier fact is the Fords had 10 of the top 11.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was. I
They
remember
were
you
they
talking
were
about it.
dominant qualifying, and during the race they were even dominant too. Because you saw Cindric and Logano, they weren't holding back. Blaney as well. Like all 3 of those Penske cars were just so fast. The Ford something about
Josh
that
Berry.
Ford something about that Ford body, definitely that front end is like miles ahead of tech of the Toyotas and Chevys.
Yeah, I mean, it's Logano's been dominant 2 weeks in a row now. Hasn't gotten a win, but in terms of, leading laps, he's been killing it. I'm just personally, I'm glad that Larson didn't win. I felt like that was a very I don't know, you're gonna do what you can do to win a race, I get it, but it just felt like intentionally like it feels like when you're watching, a football game or even, an NBA game, you're like, "Wow, that was kinda dirty," you know what I mean? Like, that was a dirty play. That's what it felt like. It felt like the NASCAR equivalent to a dirty play to me.
Definitely. And then, Kyle Larson pinching Cindric in the wall, taking out him and Byron late in the race.
Mhm. That's why I'm
That one
just
was
glad
tough.
he didn't win.
That was tough to watch because Cindric. I even said this last week. I told you Cindric is the best super speedway racer,
He was
but
dominant all night.
his results never show.
That sucks. But
And that's the bad part about being so good at super speedways is that sometimes stuff like that happens. But Larson knows better because Larson, he looked back, he talked about it. He was like, you know, I, he said it was my fault. I gave him no room because that's also a dirty move. Like just not giving your the guy next to you any like room for like a lane because you
yeah,
at least got to give like a lane. If you're gonna race tight, you're gonna race tight, but you at least got to give him the respect of a lane. Cindric raced him clean, in my opinion. No dirty moves were made. Like you can make like blocks here and there, of course, but at 6 to go, you got to do that.
yeah,
It's like you're racing dirty to race dirty. It's just protecting your position. And Larson had lost some of his air. He lost some of his air with his car because Cindric was right there. So whenever he tried to correct it, his car was already sliding. But as a driver, you're supposed to know who's like right next to you. with you with how you drive in the spotter because they can feel like when the cars are right there, like right next to him or like right on the back
Yeah.
of their
And like you said, that's
the
what the
back of their
spotter
bumper.
does for you too.
Yeah, and he kinda just cleared himself, and Cindric was very upset, and he was, like, not clear. But something that surprised me out of Cindric, though, was, he got in touch with, Larson's team and was like, "Hey, can you just" he gave, one of, Kyle Larson's guys his business card and was like, "Hey, have him text me, call me, let's talk this out." And they were able to keep it professional, like,
That's
over the
good.
phone, be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, like, this is kinda like what happened, like, you know what you did." Um, but this is NASCAR. There is a receipt to be held.
Yeah.
It's like in wrestling, when someone hits the wrestler a little too stiff, they're like, got
Watch
one coming
yourself.
back at you.
Yeah.
Got one coming back. Just
Watch
just
your
just
back.
know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
give and get back.
I don't think there's any bad blood, but when there's a receipt to be given, you kind of just gotta, either just take it or if you get upset about it, then you kind of gotta look back and be like, well, why did I deserve this? So I do think Larson he is due for a receipt from Cindric.
He's due for a couple of guys if we're being honest. He's got some coming back his way, whether it's this weekend or later in the season. It's coming back.
So the thing about NASCAR drivers is they don't forget.
Elephants,
They will
man.
it will be like a couple years past that accident, and then the receipt will get paid, and they'll be like, "All right, we're good." I mean,
That's hilarious.
it happened with Dale Jr. and Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch turned Dale Jr. Whenever he was leading, and at that time, Dale Jr. was like superstardom. So when he gets wrecked out, all the fans like death threats, just going crazy. Waiting outside his house, like, how could
Every
you do this?
media outlet all
It's
week.
insane. So like at one point, same situation. Kyle Busch is leading. Junior's right behind him. Junior gives him a little tap, spins him around, messes his bumper up. But that's the thing with these race car drivers, man. They don't forget what happens to them. If
Oh
one
no.
person does something wrong, it's like their mentality is just such a different phase facet of sports that I don't think people talk about enough.
Well, I think part of it is obviously if you're winning, like if you're leading, that's even more of an incentive. But when you're racing at 180, 200 miles per hour, those little things, I mean, yes, fortunately, we haven't really seen any deaths in NASCAR. Obviously, the famous one, but it's high propensity for serious injury, or stuff that can come back later in life. Um, so it's definitely not something you're going to forget being wrecked out at 180 plus miles an hour for sure. Um,
Especially for the win. That
exactly,
makes it
especially if
that
you're
makes
winning.
it that makes it worse, and then it's like, "Okay, next time you need help, don't worry don't look towards me for it." But, at the end of the day, they're all professional, and one of the professionals in this, race, second-year Cup driver Carson Hocevar,
I was going to ask you
going
how
from
you felt.
it sucks, obviously, because the caution stuff, messed it all up, and he even said, like, he would never a Chevy would never push a Toyota to it for a win, on purpose.
Yeah,
Obviously, if he's sitting behind, he had no chance to get behind Larson. He wasn't ever going to get behind Larson. So at that point, it's like he shoves his fender in the bell, goes towards that middle, and takes a
takes the
opportunity with the friend
draft.
he had.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's just very unfortunate that the caution fell, or he probably would have won.
I think he would have.
Chevy would have had a strong chance to win. But I did want to say that the post race comments, from Chevy and Hendrick, because Hendrick is the one that supplies their motors and whatnot. It's like because it's still like a team dynamic thing. You want them
Yeah.
to be competitive. Uh, there's no adverse reactions, by them. So
And like you
they
said, it's
rate,
only his second year, so he's still got a lot of learning to do.
yeah, and positive feedback from Chevy and Hendrick support the his future racing decisions because it's not like he was just like everyone made it out to look like he was the bad guy in the situation.
No.
Oh, why would Chevy shouldn't be doing this, pushing a Toyota because last year a an interim driver, Parker Retzlaff, pushed Ford Harrison Burton to a win, which kind of screwed over Kyle Busch. But in my opinion, Kyle Busch's line at that time was breaking in that draft because it was the second Daytona race. So obviously it was a super speedway,
Yeah.
and and you've seen it firsthand how the draft works. Sometimes once the line gets going, it's gonna go, and if your line's not working, it's not working. But
Nope.
if you don't have that same team help, you're not really gonna have the chance to succeed. And I think that was the case for him. But Parker Retzlaff got a lot of backlash from Chevy because he pushed the Ford to a win,
Yeah.
even though he was going for a win himself. But the fans see it obviously a different way. They're like, well, he's going for a win. Kyle Busch didn't, help him, or Kyle Busch didn't, provide any space to have him help. And then Kyle Busch even said like a week later, he's like, I didn't expect him to help me, push me for a win. He was, we all have these meetings that we're in. He wasn't invited to that meeting, so I don't expect him to know, but he doesn't owe me anything. So that's the difference between like the professionalism that a driver has, but the consequences that they got to face against with their manufacturer. It's almost like it's a lose-lose situation at times because no matter what you do, if it ends up being the wrong decision, especially if it's a veteran, someone that has a
Should
special
know
name, like
better.
yeah, like it's almost like it could have been Denny Hamlin, it could have been Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, any other combination. And if you're that same rookie driver or second year driver or just a young driver with an aggressive past, then you're going to get looked at as the bad guy constantly. It's not going to look good, even though it's not really like your fault. Or you're just trying, or at the most, you're trying to be competitive. You don't want to have just certain people win races all the time. Otherwise, that's just fixed racing. Fixed
Yeah.
racing's not fun.
And like you said, I
Uh,
mean, I think the lack of backlash from the manufacturer comes from the fact that he is still young, but also, I know I've said it like once or twice already, but I really do think he had a legitimate shot to win that. And that's probably, I would assume they took that into consideration. Like, yeah, if the caution wasn't thrown, that move might have been like one of the more insane moves we've seen from a young buck, to get us a win with a 3 wide photo finish. So overall, I really like draft heavy racing so far, and that was just from start to finish. It was unfortunate how many cautions were thrown down the last 20 laps or so. Just so many people wrecking out. I think one was tire debris from a blowout, but overall, man, that was an insanely fun race to watch. It was.
and I do, and he did say he's gonna keep being aggressive, and I do
I like
like that.
that. I like that a lot.
Now, there's a difference between being aggressive and wrecking
Oh yeah, yeah.
aggressively.
Like being an
You
absolute
know?
menace, like
Yeah,
a certain someone or
a certain
two in
couple
the
people,
yeah. Now,
Logano and Stenhouse.
I will say I also like that because I think that we not only had a debate about this, not on this wasn't on an episode, this was just in the DMs well before I got into NASCAR. And I like to not one, I try to pride myself on not being biased, but I also have no problem on saying when I was wrong. And I was wrong. I think that this is a sport that, as an individual, it might be one of the hardest sports to get a win in. So when you have a chance to come down the stretch like he did and get that win, I really like his aggressive move there, and I really like that he basically said, "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to win races." So I really do. I like that from him, especially being a young driver.
Of course, because if you're just friendly with everyone, I hate the part of wrestling. This is like a comparison, real quick.
Yeah,
I hate the part of wrestling where they're like the young talent has to pay their dues
yeah,
before they can be a champion. Like I don't like that. You'd be like, oh well, you got to go through this step, and you got to go through the, you got to go through, you got to go through NXT, and then you got to take the long way around. You got to go to the United States title or the Intercontinental title or a tag team championship. You got to grind out at the mid tier levels. So we see that you're a top tier guy, even though people really already see you're a top tier
clearly
guy.
like yeah, clearly like you.
And it's almost like with NASCAR, you don't want that to happen. You don't want to see the same, that rookie or that second or third year guy just go, I'm content with being second behind Kyle Larson, or I'm content being behind Christopher Bell or Denny Hamlin or
Or
Kyle
put
Busch or
trying to
whoever.
always push my teammates to a win before I get to win.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like you need at some point you gotta it's a sport where you gotta be a teammate, but you have to race for yourself. You have to give yourself those opportunities as well. And if your teammates or team manufacturer teammates don't trust you, that's their fault. But the bigger picture is always supposed to be yourself. Not just, who you race for, not but yourself. Because these NASCAR people are a brand. They're a walking advertisement.
oh yeah,
And if you can't get the results, if you can't get then you can't get the sponsorships. If you can't get the sponsorships, you can't get the ride.
you're not getting paid either.
Exactly. And that's why I like Carson for his aggressiveness because he's turned Spire is pretty much like a bottom to mid tier team when he joined, and he pretty much outraced his own equipment
That's
that he was
crazy.
in,
Yeah, that's crazy.
and I was happy to see him in the Cup Series because whenever he had taken the Cup Series, part time before he was full time because they get some young drivers do get to like test drive the cars at certain races.
He's only 22.
He's very young. He's also like 6'3". He's very tall,
Yeah.
and which also helps because 'cause they're not gonna fight a 6'3" guy, you gotta pretty much reach up to him, punch him.
Especially some of these guys are in their mid 30s, late, pushing 40.
So I do think that at a certain level, you gotta think for yourself, and thinking for yourself has to be the number one priority, so that way you can get paid, you can have a great ride, and that way, because if the more races that he has good, the better his cars and tech can get, because those positions matter, how you finish. And if you finish good, then you can upgrade your team and your equipment. I know it sounds like a video game, that's literally how it works. You can update your tech, you can put more into your pocket, whatever, but you have the money to work with now.
Yeah.
So definitely getting like a second place finish, a win, or even like a top 5 or 10 very much helps
Huge.
out the team do better in the technical sport because NASCAR's game is so much more technical than it used to be. I remember showing you the Jeff Gordon, T-Rex car
Yeah.
and how that got banned because that car was light years faster than any other car in the track. And you know what NASCAR did? They called him, they said, "Hey, whatever that car was, don't you can't use that car no more." "Why can't we use that car anymore?"
Yeah.
It's not banned, we did nothing wrong." "It's gonna be banned tomorrow."
You did something wrong now. Nah, I've kind of gotten a hint at it. They talked about it where they were just highlighting a lot of just like the small technical things, like changes they've made to try to avoid, like you said, the flips. So yeah, it's crazy how detailed they get, with a lot of the engineering aspects of these rides.
Yeah. And it's also cool to see, like, he had he had a line waiting for him too. He
Oh
had
yeah,
Ross Chastain in the infield. It's like you see them talking, in one frame, then they cut to another frame, and then he's talking to Ryan Blaney. Cut to another frame, talking to Kyle Busch. I'm like, man, it's just a line of people just ready to just like say their words.
to the young bull.
I think Ross was more mad than the rest because Blaney had a better finish, so he was like okay. He's like calm down, but he's just like calm down, just gotta slow down.
I saw he was on
You
a
know,
podcast, right, as well, or an
Blaney.
interview. Somebody was where they were
I
like, yeah,
think
he's just got to calm down.
that was the post race interview,
Okay,
and then Kyle Busch he said the same thing. Like
Bush always
he
has
knows
something
what
to say though.
he knows what it's like to be young and aggressive and just kind of like take what you can get.
That, like,
But
actually is exactly how he Bush was back in the day, yeah.
exactly, but that all it is, it's all a learning experience, It's his 2nd year in Cup, you can't, get mad at somebody for that. He's a rookie of the year for a reason. He doesn't get in a lot of accidents.
And
I
that's
think his reputation is definitely not what people make it out to be or whatever it used to be in the Truck Series. Because he might have been a menace in the Truck Series, but once you're at the big time, certain stuff doesn't fly, and I
yeah.
think people forget that, like second year in, he's learning from the best. And like he said in his interview, he's never going to learn unless he races with them.
Yeah. And at 22, how much actual experience does he have, compared to a guy like Kyle Busch?
Because he had an interim year before his rookie year last year. And by interim, I mean like he got a couple rides in Cup.
Yeah.
And he was racing. Obviously, when you get those kind of rides, you're not racing for the best teams.
No.
He was racing with Legacy Motor Club for a couple of those, and he put up better results than the Legacy drivers in a part time car.
So he really is. He's an up and coming that dude type of driver.
Speaking of up and coming drivers, I did want to point out Connor Zilic just won the Xfinity Series at Coda.
Yeah, he's
I showed you. I showed you that penalty earlier. With when he got into pit road, he entered pit road when it was closed by
yeah.
like just a millisecond. So he had to start at the tail end of the field at stage two. He gained 26 positions in 11 laps at one point.
That's actually insane.
I
Like
and
that's insane.
I told you he's a road course ringer. You're gonna hear that a lot when you hear about these road courses. But I've told you about this kid since like last year. Like I was like, how do I've told you how do I invest in this kid? Like where do I put my money at? Because this is where the money needs to go. And obviously, this is his first full year in Xfinity. So congrats, Connor Zilic. You got your second Xfinity win, but your first for like a full time season.
Yeah, congrats. That's crazy.
Um,
How old is he?
and he is 18 years old.
Oh my goodness. That's insane. So he has like is he racing tomorrow?
He is. He's
Yeah.
in the cup. He's racing the part time Red Bull 87 for Trackhouse.
And he
I told
has
you them Trackhouse drivers are they're nuts.
a legitimate shot, you know, legitimate odds, right? Coming up here.
Yeah, he's one of the favorites.
That's
That's
actually
crazy.
crazy.
It's his cup debut, and he's the second favorited driver. The first
At
being
18
Shane
years
Van.
old.
Yeah, the first being Shane Van Gisbergen. And I'm a betting man, believe it or not. And I was even a crate. I couldn't even believe the odds they had for Connor Zilic to win. But after seeing the results from the Xfinity race today, the Cup guys better watch their back
So
because he's starting 14th. But
that's not bad though.
I mean, with what he just did today, I don't think. I don't. I still think he is a threat even that far back.
So speaking of a threat, who do you like for Coda tomorrow?
all the all the Trackhouse guys look very good. I like Hocevar. Hocevar is a solid road course driver. I think I just hope their pitch strategy doesn't mess up their results.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a lot more better road course racers on this list. There were a couple years ago. Um, if I had to pick my three to win, oh, that's tough. But I will say I'm gonna go Connor Zilic,
I like that.
Shane Van Gisbergen,
That's a safe one.
and man, the third one is tough. But I'm gonna go Chase Elliott with
Interesting.
my sleeper pick or my long shot. Uh, I think my long shot will be Alex Bowman.
He actually had a really good race. Yeah, he got wrecked out, but he was having a pretty decent race himself on Sunday. Um, we are in unison on Chase Elliott. My three would be Chase, Tyler Reddick, and I'm always going to pick a JGR guy. So I am going to go with Denny Hamlin. And then my long shot will be Zane Smith, a Ford. But
Now I won't be surprised if AJ Allmendinger because he's starting 12th
I was thinking about
in
picking
the
it.
list.
Well, if I wasn't going to pick a JGR guy, Allmendinger would have been my other third. But I'm always going to pick a JGR guy. I'm going to let the fanboy in me come out for my picks every week. Um, and like I said, I really like Chris Bell, but he definitely had some fortune in his back pocket this past Sunday. I think overall so far, Denny's been a little bit stronger throughout the first two races. So that's going to be my guy. And I would love to see Ty Gibbs um, snatch a win, but first he has to get at least in the top 10, somewhere in there. He's not having a terrible season, but he hasn't really stood out either.
Ty Gibbs isn't bad at road courses either, but it's just hard to trust him actually getting a win when you don't have one.
Yeah. And like, we briefly touched on, it's got to be one of the hardest sports for an individual to get a win in, like for sure.
Definitely.
Because
But
it's not just skill, it's like you do almost have to have a little bit of luck too. Because like you can't control if the 19 is gonna smash into the 25 and ricochet off a wall and hit you. You know what I'm like. You can do your best to avoid it, but you can't predict that. And that could have nothing
and
to do with how you
strategy.
were yeah, and pitch strategy. Um, you're banking on a spotter giving you a flawless race, through hundreds of laps. It's a lot. A lot goes in for an individual to win a race in NASCAR for sure.
That's why it's a lot different than all the other sports, man. I swear, like you might see like the OKC Thunder, they're pulling away in the standings right now, but you can beat them any given day of the week,
Yeah.
But they can also win 9 times out of 10. Like it's just that easy to win a one on one.
One guy gets
Whereas
injured and the whole season's done.
whereas NASCAR, you're just hoping that this, that, and a third doesn't happen, and then you also want this, that, and a third to happen in that same race.
Mhm.
Like it's tough, and you got to be very strategic. You got to know the car, you got to know the parts, you got to hope all the parts are in the right spot. You got to hope all the wedges are turned correctly. Like it is such a puzzle, but man, it is so fun to watch unfold.
Gotta hope your spoiler is league approved.
Like Michael McDowell, he was 5, 6 laps down since the first stage this past week. He finished with like almost a top 10.
Was he the one that every caution he kept getting the lap out of it to where he wound up
Yep.
making it? Yeah, that's actually hilarious. I guess the one positive thing to so many I don't know about I mean, yeah, I guess positive to all the cautions down the stretch is everyone's fueled up so everyone can kind of go 100. No, pedal to the metal, no worries. But it's going to be interesting when I see my first like fairly clean finish, so it's very strategic down those last 40 to 50 laps.
I think this weekend for the road courses, I would expect a lot of bumping.
Yeah,
Could be a lot of tight turns, a lot of cars being impatient. So definitely a lot of more bumping. There's gonna be some spins, but it's not gonna be like caution worthy spins. So as long as they can, get back started, then it's
okay.
not like yeah, it's not like like a speedway type of spin where like if someone gets tapped and they fall out of line, then a caution will throw.
Because of
They give
the
a little
speed.
yeah, they give a little more leniency because you're not going like 200 miles an hour. You're going probably like 75, 80 into a turn.
Yeah.
And then, like, they give you time to recover, get back in line, and, try to complete the race from there.
Yeah, I'm looking
But
forward to it. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
so definitely a lot of bumping and strategy for this weekend, and hopefully one of our drivers actually hits the win button.
Yeah, especially if you're throwing any money down this weekend like you like to.
Oh, I have a lot of money, and let me tell you, I am not sure how I am excited, but I hope I win.
Before we completely wrap this episode up, I wanted to bring up one last thing for myself and see how you're feeling about it real quick. Won't take too long. There's a lot of strong reports from people that I tend to trust on the Washington media side that within the next couple of days, the Commanders might swing a trade for Deebo Samuel. 29 years old, just turned 29 in January. Um, so won't be 30 until after the season. Not obviously what he was 3 seasons ago, but without a doubt, he's the second best receiver that would be on our roster. Um, I don't hate it. I would say there's a lot of I see a lot of I don't say animosity, but just a lot of indecisiveness from Commanders Twitter. Where some people were like, "Yeah, absolutely," and other people were just like, "No, this is a terrible idea. He doesn't fit our timeline." I would say one so far. I think we trust Adam Peters, even though not every decision has been flawless. I would say he's batting 90 plus percent. I mean, you can't beat it. Um, and when you got a guy like JD5 back there, man, somebody like Deebo Samuel to take some pressure off Terry McLaurin, and just because we trade for Deebo doesn't mean we're done. Um, I think it's going to be a huge upgrade. And when you're a team that was predicted, I think the over under was 6.5 games, and
Maybe less.
you win 12 of them things, and you go all the way to the conference championship game, it kind of changes the trajectory of where you were at. Whereas had they only won 7 or 8 games, and you know, they probably wouldn't be trying to trade for a Deebo Samuel. They probably wouldn't have traded in midseason for Marshawn Lattimore. But they think that there's something more there than what initially was thought of. So they're gonna make some moves on both sides of the fence where they're gonna go for those Deebo Samuels if the opportunity is there and if the compensation isn't crazy. And then they're also probably going to make some cheaper moves or some younger guys. But as another wide receiver needy team, being a Patriots fan, how do you feel about potentially seeing Debo in Washington?
I think it's a perfect fit for you guys, honestly. I'm not sure that I think Debo, he is coming off a bad season from last year, dropping a lot of passes, just not being he had a little injury, a little bit of a teammate scuffle that I didn't like, with the
Yeah.
the snapper, the holder. It was like one of the kickoff people.
Yeah.
And I think all the stress for his year is finally getting to him.
They had a bad season as, just as a team.
Yeah, obviously Brandon Ayuk being out with his ACL injury right after getting paid, not winning a lot of games, and just a lot of people got hurt. Christian McCaffrey, barely, I don't think he played once this year,
I don't remember what his injury was.
or if he did play, it was very minuscule because then he wasn't playing for us. Uh, it was like a weird injury. It was like I think I don't want to say it was a knee, but it was definitely like a leg injury. You want to double check me on that?
A bilateral Achilles tendonitis. So he had
Yes,
Achilles tendonitis in both legs,
yes.
which is
And I
insane.
remember And I remember he was getting that treated and was hoping to come back, help try to push the 49ers to a playoff push. But
Played 4
I,
games.
yeah, but by that time it was pretty much useless to start him.
Yeah.
So, and I think that receiver room is just starting to get a little too stacked, especially with how much money's going out there. The Debo did get extension a couple years back, but who's to say you guys can't take on a that contract, or
Uh
at least the majority of it?
Yeah, our money is good, and we also just got a little bit of a bump. It was a 3 year 71.5 million extension for Debo. Um, the cap did rise a little bit, which means everyone has a little bit more money to work with than they were originally accounting for. So the money isn't an issue for us. Um,
Because when I see like when I think about like if Debo goes to Jaden Daniels, I don't think it's any different than Brock Purdy. I think obviously Jaden's a little more elusive, but Brock is still like that kind. Brock Purdy's still that guy that will pass that ball. He will make sure that you get that ball, uh, and get an opportunity for at least 10 yards. Like, I do think in that regard, I think a lot of people underrate him, but he's also good for a deep ball. It's about the same as Jaden Daniels is as well. We've seen it time and time again with Debo and Brock, finding success 30, 40 yards out, especially with his explosiveness, but also with having Debo in the slot, that would help you guys very much and put a lot of weight off of Terry's shoulders,
oh
having
yeah,
him the
that's the
most versatile
biggest
receiver.
thing for me is getting some
Because
relief for Terry.
He's still explosive right off the line. I do think if he locks in, maybe stops podcasting as much and focuses in on the season, he could be a real threat for you guys instead of just doing the in around routes that he can do. Like actually be like kind of like a slot receiver, hit him from like the 5 to 15 yards, and just kind of let him get going. Find him in the transition, and hopefully he can burst out for another 20.
Yeah, I think Cliff is gonna have some fun if they make that happen for sure.
But no, I do think that'd be a better fit for you guys. I don't think for the Patriots in our best interest to get him. Um,
Because he'd be more like a number one without any other moves for you guys.
yeah, and then if we get Travis Hunter, then who knows? I don't because then trying to figure that dynamic out's going to be tough. Having a receiver running back starting with a receiver corning back,
Yeah, that
I
would be
don't,
quite interesting.
and I still think Vrabel wants to get AJ Brown. They might have won the Super Bowl, but I still think he get AJ Brown back.
I still hope you do too. Get him out of
Um,
Philly, man.
but no, I do. I think that'd be a good offseason draft for you guys for sure. That would definitely help out the receiver room and definitely. I don't know how that would help the rest of the receivers though because or I mean in the terms of like who you would keep and get rid of between the Zacchaeus,
Noah
Diami
Brown.
Brown, and oh yeah Noah Brown, not Diami.
No, no, Diamond there
Uh
too.
oh
Both.
oh you have
We do.
two Browns. Excuse me. And Luke McCaffrey.
I think Zacchaeus and Noah
I think
Brown
Luke
are the
McCaffrey is
two odd men out with the Debo
I
move.
I do think Luke McCaffrey is underrated on your team. You guys should use him.
I agree. I mean, he had chances, but he didn't have enough chances. And I would definitely like to see him get a little more work in this season, um, especially with Debo coming in. I mean, you'd have Debo on one side, potentially Terry on the other. That leaves a lot of wiggle room for a three wide receiver set. So
Yeah, you guys really disappointed with Zacchaeus. Just never using him in the playoffs. I don't know what it
only when
was.
you needed him.
Pretty much every game in the playoffs.
Yeah, he was. I liked him. I liked him. But it did seem like I don't know. It felt like outside of the Lions game, we uh we didn't struggle in the air, but we just got a little unorthodox from what had kind of been working. But that's why they're trying to make a move for a guy like Debo or maybe even T Higgins. Um, but yeah, I do. I think we're in agreement there. I do think that he's a perfect fit. Obviously it'd be nice if he was maybe 2 years younger, but can't turn the clock back. So overall, I think it is if they make that move. Obviously, it depends on the compensation that's sent out, but it could potentially be anywhere from a B plus to an A plus move for us, in my opinion.
But that's pretty much my opinion. You close this out.
Yeah, I think that with football season kind of being quiet, obviously, it's been really nice having NASCAR in the picture. NBA season's getting interesting. So I think that we are really about to have a lot of exciting things to talk about here in the next couple of weeks. So, as always, I appreciate everyone that checks us out, and we will see you guys next week.